Well, hey, good morning. Happy Monday. Sticking with 11 o'clock for now. Can't believe I got it together in time. Honestly, I put the show together this morning after the traumatizing event of dropping the kids off for the first day of school. You know, I just wonder, like, as a grown up person, if other grown up people only did their jobs a little bit, like a little bit well, life would be so much less chaotic, dangerous, insane, crazy making, etc., etc., etc. It was amazing just trying to deposit my two children at two different schools in the same town. It was almost a feat of logistics that would rival like planning the grand tour. So maybe every day it won't be like this, but I just remember, I'm not going to start, but I just remember being a kid and and being dropped off at school and by my mom who would then work, who's probably live, and other kids would be there a little bit earlier, a little bit later because their parents went to work at different times. Um, and now it's like the doors are open for 10 minutes, all in 10 minutes. They're locked before, and there's a line of people waiting outside like they're waiting to get into a Beatles concert. Far from it. And then as soon as those 10 minutes are done, the bell rings, the door shuts. It is like it's like a trap door snapping shut on like a cavern. And then you have to ring the bell and wait to be let in and all that stuff. And I'm just thinking, wow, I'm stopping. There's no parking spaces, right? People are driving around like sharks. I drove around the parking lot 8 times. Um, but if people were allowed to just drop their children off, enter the school, pull the car away, the next person could come take their parking spot, drop their child off. The world is just not logical anymore. I think we can probably agree on that. There's so much that happens that is anti logical and anti common sense. I don't know. It riles me right up. It really does. Everything triggers me so much that I react constantly. Everybody must think I'm crazy. That's probably why I have no friends in this neighborhood. The word has spread that I'm crazy and argumentative and outspoken. But man, I do not suffer fools well. That is the blanket statement. Man, I'll tell you. All right. Well, I haven't heard from either child that they're wandering around on the sidewalk, forlorn, alone, and lost. So I'm hoping that both of them are actually inside of a school. We'll see. Ah, Catherine, happy Friday morning. Great to see you too. Wishing everyone a wonderful week. That's it, Friday. Let's start out on a good note. It is August also. The last sentiment. It is August. And I'm just so tired of the kids going back to school in August. I really am. We're supposed to go back on Wednesday, and the superintendent, thank you, moved it to Monday. So they have a full first week. Super fun. And then we get a break, like a long weekend for. I'm stopping. All right, Kirsten, great to see you. Happy Monday. Still smoky in Vermont. I'm surprised. That is not good. Linda B, did I say? And to you too, Cats Gallery. Happy Linda, great to see you. Happy Monday. I want to remind everybody before I forget that tonight is the book club night. So Natalie Ferg's The Sewing Machine. What a book that was. I finished it over the weekend and it was fantastic. Um, so we'll be talking about that at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Zoom login information for the book club meeting tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is in the description to this video. So make sure that you have that if you want to log on. We can chat. I'm going to make some notes to give us like a skeleton for chatting. But yeah, make a list of the interesting things that you want to say or things you want to draw our attention to, or if you just rather hook and have quiet and just listen. And any scenario is fine. It'll be great to have you there. And at some point today, I'm going to be making a final decision about the next book. If you have a suggestion of the next book, write it here in the thread or send me your idea at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. I have a few contenders, but I haven't made a final decision. So I'm trying to choose. This book was brought to my attention, The Sewing Machine, by my buddy Rebecca Martin White, Storyteller Wool, and she hit it out of the park. But she belongs to at least one actual in-person book club, And I know that like there's like Oprah's list, and there's a lot of lists of book clubs that are great. I'm trying to not do exactly the same books that are in every book club, because I feel like if you belong to another book club, you might have already read the book. And maybe that's a good thing, or maybe that's like a meh anticlimactic thing. So I'm trying to keep a list of books that I don't see everywhere, that maybe I haven't heard of myself, that'll be fun to approach for the first time. So I'm anxious to get your ideas and opinions on that too, because I don't want to be the only one who picks out books, you know. Karen, great to see you. Good morning from cool and cloudy Black Forest, Colorado. Good to see you this morning. And Ryan, happy Monday from North Texas. Day off of work, so you're finishing your haunted rug piece. I can't wait to see it. I love that piece. Peace and love to you too. Great to see you. Robin, great to see you. Happy belated birthday. Did I write happy birthday to you on your birthday? I feel like I did. I feel like I did. I hope that I did. If not, I am such a jerk. From hot and humid and muggy Wisconsin. Oh no! Michelle, great to see you. Good morning to you too. Great to see you. I like all those birds you put in the sun rising. Melissa, great to see you. Good morning. Just bathed the dog. That's hard to say. So sorry, it's the first day of school. Thank you. It is, I know some parents are like counting down the minutes that they can like eject their children from the house. I hate it when they go back. I just hate it because it's such a beautiful day. We could have driven maybe to Providence and gone to the pinball museum, or we could have driven to the beach and gone into the water. Or there's a million things that we could have done that would have been fun, educational, culturally interesting. Yeah, I guess maybe I am a homeschooler at heart, and we just don't do it because of time and everything else. But it's really hard for me to drop them off, and I just don't know. And I have to say, like on a personal note, my autistic Teddy is going to the middle school, and this is not a great town. So I'm looking to get him out sooner rather than later. The middle school should still be okay, but I do know there's a lot of kids in there, for example, who um, take drugs, get pregnant. Like I know this for a fact, and I just find this, without sounding like a total New England prude, which I guess I am, in some ways. I find that incredible that that is even a thing at this point. But worries me a little bit, and I guess everybody feels like that. It seems early for kids to have historically at this middle school had those kind of problems. It feels early to me. So good to be here for a short time. So good to see you too, Mom. I know you got to zip off to your art class. Oh, Karen says, New Girl in Little Cove. The thing about that, Karen, is we had a book club like at the beginning of Ribbon Candy Hooking, and we did 2 books. That was one of them, and I actually had the author on. And the second one was Single Thread, and that was not Ann Patchett. Who was that? Tracy Chevalier. So those are the only 2 books that we've done so far. I loved the book. But yeah, I feel like we already did it, and a lot of the people who were there at, for the first iteration of the book club, because then I paused for 2 years when things were busy, and I got busy with writing books. But yeah, that would be an early repeat. We could repeat it a little bit later, but I loved that book, and it did have some great rug hooking references in it. So yeah, nor should we suffer fools. I totally agree. Suffering fools and people who are just mean is just not something that's on the cards for me. Along those lines, let me just, before we start with the content of the show, I'll show you the morning here. Now, I have to admit, it's not that I don't have my you-know-what together, to the extent that, like, I could have painted a chalkboard that said 6th grade, or I'm sorry, 7th grade and 5th grade, right? Like I could have painted a chalkboard, sat the kids on the front step, had them, take a picture next to the chalkboard. I think we're just not that family. It's not even a time thing, or an organization thing. It's just, I think we're just not that kind of family. So we went out like, half belly aching, half like delusional, and half asleep. And our exits from the house, even on the first day, are not the kind you would put on Facebook. So Teddy did not want a picture, so he heads off to the car, having mixed feelings because he normally wears a kilt, but he didn't want to wear a kilt today because he's going to a new school, and there's a lot more kids there from different neighborhoods, not just our super woke and hip neighborhood here where kids can wear whatever they want and nobody's going to make fun of them. He's going into the bigger pool of fish now, and he realizes that anything could happen. So I don't want people picking picking on him or anything like that, and he didn't either. So he chose to wear shorts, and I have mixed feelings about it. Oh, Goede Eva, Heidi, good to see you. I hope that at some point in the near future, he will be able to dress how he wants and be completely himself again. We shall see. But being yourself is not always something that works for us. For example, here is Jocelyn this morning going to school. Are you saying, is she on one of those kneeboard scooters for people who have just had a terrible accident? Yes, because over the weekend, we went to the trampoline park. I bought the membership for a year contract. We went for the first time under our membership, and she was wearing her homemade masks, that she brings a suitcase of homemade masks and a tail, and a group of kids. She was there by herself trying to make friends, as she always is. A group of kids started picking on her, and one of them told another one that Jocelyn wanted to fight them, right? This child wanted to fight them. But at the time, she was wearing a tail and a cat mask. And the kid who was told that she wanted to fight and that she had called him a name didn't ask questions. He just went up, ripped the tail off of her back. It was attached by safety pins, which cut her. And she reacted by whirling around, and she tripped and fractured her foot. So I filed a report at the place. I could have filed a police report. I honestly, everything happened so fast, just like our car accident the other night. I didn't really know what to do. I probably should have filed a police report. And the place, Urban Air in Orange, I'm going to say it, didn't even, they promised me that they would look at the video of this interaction and speak to the boys. I knew who the boys were because I'd already spoken to them, and that didn't go well. I think I could have been arrested for what I said, actually. But they didn't. They didn't bother. And by the time they did, the boys had left like 2 hours earlier. So that didn't help us at all. So I don't know where we are with stuff like this. But yeah, I think it's a sign that this area, living in this area, is not working out for us at all. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed. Feel like we could have started the year on a better note all around. Colleen said, my husband zooms around on his knee scooter too while his broken heel mends. It is an amazing thing. It really is so cool and awesome. We were able to borrow it from Jay, which was really lucky. He keeps it for his parents in case they have accidents, but they're both good right now. So she was really happy because crutches hurt your armpits, right? Even if you're really leaning into them, they hurt your armpits. And she doesn't want to use them, and it's easy to trip on other stuff. She tripped on I was dying in the kitchen, and she tripped on the towel on the floor. And then she landed on her boot, which really hurt. So, yeah, stupidness. But yeah, that knee thing is fantastic. I love that thing. And let's see what happens. Hopefully she heals soon and she's able to be active again, because she is an active child. It was horrible. There are such evil kids out there, I'm telling you. And I know that people say, oh, there's bad kids everywhere, right? There's bullies everywhere. Well, I'm sure that that's true, but I do feel like there are some areas where there are more bullies and some areas where there are less bullies. So I'm really looking to reposition us in an area where there are less. Because it's just crazy. Life is crazy. But I was able to come back home and start working on our stuff. And I thought, you know what? Let's look at this book that I got a while back by one of my favorite people and one of my favorite authors. She passed away years ago. I've never met Nina Fletcher Little. And the only reason I know about Nina Fletcher Little, and I forget what her husband's name is. I feel like it was, oh, I almost had it. It was on the tip of my tongue. They lived in the house in, I want to say Ipswich. Was it Ipswich or Ipswich? I think it is Ipswich, Cape Ann, so Massachusetts. That our group a couple of years ago, it might have been 3 years ago now, we did a field trip there. Do you remember this day? We went to Beauport, which is also on Cape Ann. That's in Gloucester. I know that. The Sleeper McCann house is called Beauport. And then we drove over, like in tandem in cars. I remember it was a caravan. Almost everybody had a red car. I thought, what does that mean? But we drove over to Cogswell Grant, which is a house that was owned by the Fletchers. And they were a wealthy couple who were extreme scholars of early American folk art. And Nina did a lot of writing. Both of them did, but Nina did a lot of writing on decorative arts, and that's why I have all of her books. Her book on hat boxes, like band boxes made of wallpaper. Her book on floor coverings. She's got a lot of books on decoration. What you would see architecturally in a very early American home, and their home was loaded, just littered with hooked rugs all over the place, as was the Sleeper McCann house. Maybe we should plan another outing to do that. Those were two such great houses. They both belonged to the organization called Historic New England, and that day we saw hundreds of rugs. There were so many in both places. It was really exciting. I'm catching up on your comments too. Crutches on the stairs is really scary. That's true, Judy. I have her going upstairs like on her butt, but it hurts because she bangs her foot inevitably, and then she starts crying, and the whole emotional thing starts again with the stress and all of that. Michelle says, agree. Good for you. You're absolutely correct. Grew up in the hood myself and was bullied my whole childhood. I'm sending all my love to her. Oh, thank you. And you know what she said after that? And I was chatting with Rita when all this happened, because I just sent Rita a picture of her bouncing. Right before this happened, she had on her mask and her tail, and the kids had already interacted with her but moved on, so we thought we were good. And another boy came up to her, this little boy who was smaller than she was, but probably the same age. And I was waiting to take a video because I wanted to take a video of her jumping, because she had me come over there to watch her do this trick. And this little boy, who was probably, I would say 8 or 9, was doing some early mansplaining. And he was telling her how to jump and jump on these trampolines, as if she doesn't know how, right? She's excellent. We have a huge trampoline in the backyard. So she waited for him. She was nodding, and she waited for him to get out of the way. And then she did like a triple jump and flip on the trampoline and landed back on the podium where she started while wearing the mask and tail. It was like a kangaroo moment. And I thought, good for you, Joss. Good for you. And that little boy's mother was standing behind me, and she shouted, don't you dare try that. And I thought, there we go. But then 5 minutes later, the incident happened. So Rita says, I think you should file a report. Yeah, I could. I don't think they're going to be able to identify the kids that did it at this point. That's the problem, because they weren't able to match like the kids who entered to that particular child, because they waited 2 hours. And I know the kids who work there, it's like their summer job. They don't care. They don't care that there was an incident. They're like leaving. It's probably like their last week before they go back to school too. They just didn't care. I was so angry. Lori, I'm so sorry, sweet. I know. So awful. I've never seen her cry like that. She came to me crying. I was so confused because I had just sat down, because I had just done a video. I had just sat down. I had my hooking, and I was so confused. She was beyond crying, and she was limping, and I just didn't clock it. I watched her coming toward me, and I was like confused. And she said, we're getting out of here now. And I was like, did something happen? And she said yes, but she didn't want to tell me what it was. And then those boys came over, and I did call them an awful name. That boy who did it, I have to say. And he was super insolent. What are you looking at, lady? He kept saying, what are you looking at, lady? Why are you looking at me like that, lady? I said, you got a problem, hon. Like, you got a real big problem here, because I'm reporting this, and we might call the police to boot, which we should have done. But he was so mouthy. Oh, well, my friend told me that she said this about me. I said, is there something wrong with you that you listen to what people tell you, and then you attack people you don't? You literally attack people you don't. Is there something wrong? But man, I think they were actually gone before the manager even came over, because I didn't see them after that. Telling you. And Joss said, well, I just won't wear my mask and my tail anymore, just like Teddy with the kilt. Well, I just won't wear it anymore. And I thought, I'm going to stay out of it. She can, I'm not going to force her to wear the mask and the tail, because she does become a target. Obviously, she's dressed like an animal. But I think it's an awful shame where you can't go out in public to a place that you pay an arm and a leg for, and be who you are and look the way that you want to look, right? It's not like she's wearing a union suit and carrying a chainsaw, right? She looks like a little kid, and she's dressed like a cat. I don't know. This world, I'm telling you. I don't think it was any different, honestly, in the 1950s, right? West Side Story tells us it wasn't. So it's just, I'm going through it now, and it sucks, right? So it was fun to pick up this book this morning. This is a fairly easy book to get. I know it's on eBay. I'm not sure what the price point is, but I found it, I forget where I was the other day. I was at some kind of in an antique store. It was $2.50, which is less than it was anywhere else. This was owned by something Marshall in Deerfield, Mass. That's one of my favorite towns. A particular New England interest, obviously, but particularly Massachusetts interest because of the author, well known in folk art circles, well known at the Folk Art Museum. You know, she's a well known person. She writes a lot on the subject of early American folk art, and specifically Nina. Oh, I almost had his name. Wait a minute. Bernard, maybe Bernard, something like that. I think it's Bernard, but she writes more on decorative stuff. He writes more like lens pulled out further on architecture and movements more. One of Nina's other, I think one of their shared passions for early American research is lighting. And I know that sounds crazy, but she had at Cogswell Grant, like back in the 50s or 60s, she had a club. I know I've mentioned this before. It's so particular of people who belonged to an early American lighting club. And they would sit around, and I mean, this sounds great to me, and talk about early American lighting and talk about examples of, for example, rush lighting, candles, candle holders, different kinds of candles, materials that you would use to make a candle or anything that might burn. And they would find examples and sell to each other what lay things out on blankets and say, well, I don't exactly collect this. Maybe you do, maybe you want it. So also American lighting is another, early American lighting is another subject that she writes about a lot. And all of these things go together because she's very interested in the way people decorated houses, before, let's say 1860, before we really get into the Victorian period, right? Victoria is already on the throne, but as far as the U.S., our timeline doesn't revolve around Queen Victoria. Once we hit 1860, we're talking about more industrialization and more products being manufactured in the U.S. and more trade and exchange, right? So we're access to more pre-made stuff. And it's at that point, too, that we talk about the introduction of rug hooking. But at this point, before 1850, there is no rug hooking. So we are talking about alternate floor coverings because we're talking about before 1850. So the title of this book literally is Floor Coverings in New England Before 1850. And if you see the one behind me, I'm going to show you another picture of it. It is the cover of the book. It is a beautiful example. This would have been a portrait, a family portrait, right? These are family portraits, pet portraits, portraits of children, portraits of individuals. This is the Talcott family. And this is actually a known artist and a female artist. Deborah Goldsmith painted this in 1832. And this is in New York State. So this was in the collection of Abby Aldrich Rockefeller, her folk art collection. And that is another great book. It's very, very thick. A collection of early American through the early 19th century folk art. Another book that we should look at some point. I have it on the shelf, and it is another phenomenal research piece. So this book by Nina Fletcher was written in 1967, and it was kind of reprised in 1972, the year I was born. So the the newest version of this book is now 52 years old. But it is filled with, I think, still very current information and research that is solid, right? Because we're not talking about research that was done like the early 19th century. We're talking about somebody who was going on foot doing research and in touch with museums and museum houses, house collections, galleries, things like that. She was super well connected. So I'm going to read a little bit, and then let's look at some of the examples in the book, because it's a short book. Just so you know, if you're thinking, "Oh, I'm interested in this subject, I might want to read. I might want this book," you should get it. It is a cute book. It's at 80 pages, the index starts. So it goes up to 80 pages. There's a lot of imagery. We're going to look at some of them today, and they all have carpets in them. We'll probably split this episode into two parts, actually, because she does get into the sheared rug, which is not the hooked rug. She does get into stuff like that, things that resemble piled loop rugs that are done with needles rather than hooks. And she gets into braided rugs toward the end. But let's start at the beginning of the book. Everything in here is a black and white illustration, but incredibly, as you'll see in my slideshow, as you go through it, many of the images are in color on the internet. So if you look at one of these pictures and you go, well, that's a great illustration. I love the rug that they're showing, but I can't see the colors. Chances are if you type in the tag for that photo, you'll pull it up in color. So that's a great thing to know, right? Because it gives you like an enhanced experience, doesn't it? So I'm going to start by reading this, and then let's look at some of the images in the book that I was able to find in color. So I'm going to start the intro for you, and this is written again by Nina Fletcher Little. So she writes, introduction. And if you're wondering, how many rugs were there in early America on the floor, right? And if you're saying, of course, on the floor, not necessarily, of course, on the floor. Rugs were not at all on the floor originally. The answer is going to be not hardly any, like none to hardly any. So this is the way she describes it. Relatively few floor coverings appear to have been used in New England homes until during the 17th or 18th centuries, although, so the answer is like hardly any, although rugs connotating warm hand-worked coverlets are frequently listed as bed coverings in a representative group in, and I'm paraphrasing here, in home inventories between 1675 and 1723. In other words, what I'm saying is that Nina says, if you look at early home inventories from that time, people are using the word rug in a different way than we use the word rug nowadays. A rug is like a blanket or a coverlet, right? It's later that rugs are on the floor, right? We're saying carpets are, in those days, carpets are on the floor, rugs are not. Rugs are over your lap, over your bed, over you in the sleigh while a horse pulls you, but carpets are on the floor. So we do see rugs, R-U-G, rugs, R-U-G-G-S, rugs, R-U-G-G-E-S, in house inventories from this early settlement period, but they aren't actually rugs for the floor. And then she goes on to say the term carpets, however, appears in only 8 of the 49 estates recorded, right, for this project, 5 of which were specified as table coverings, right? So still saying carpet in meaning it goes on the table. None apparently were used for the floor, right? So of this one survey of 49 estates, meaning houses, like collected inventory, only 8 of them mention a carpet or a rug, and none of them are items that were used on the floor. Interesting, right? And if you're thinking, oh, wasn't it cold in those days? It was very cold in those days, but there were more priorities than whether or not your feet were cold. Like having a house that didn't have holes in it or a missing roof or walls, and eating food, those would definitely be priorities over my feet are cold in the morning. So it's going to be a long time before we're actually seeing rugs on the floor. These textiles nonetheless were treasured, since they were invariably included with the furnishings of the best rooms. So they were recorded. These are not thrift rugs at this moment, not yet. And then she goes on to say carpets, in the modern sense of the word, did not become common even in homes of wealthy people until the first quarter of the 18th century, meaning 1700 to 1725. Even for wealthy people, they had cold feet when they got out of bed in the morning and all day long. The statement applies equally well to New England as well as England, where after 1725, Oriental carpets gradually began to appear in well-to-do homes, soon to be followed by the importation of British carpets. That's something we're going to talk about in this episode, made on hand looms, operated by organized groups of professional weavers. So again, we are not talking about hooked rugs when we are talking about pre-1860. We are talking about rugs that are loomed, and a little bit later, rugs that are made with a needle. But we're not talking about rugs that are made with a hook at all during this conversation. By the middle of the 18th century, meaning the 1850s, around there, carpets were being used on both tables and floors. One 1745 inventory makes this clear by enumerating 2 painted table carpets, valued at £2 and valued at £2, so £1 each, and 1 painted floor cloth, not carpet, that was valued at £10. That must have been enormous. So are they painting the surface of carpets? Yes, yes. And you occasionally still see that today, right? We don't do that much. I mean, it would look like something like a velvet painting of Elvis, wouldn't it? A little bit, Melissa. you would see paint on the surface, right? But it would enhance or pop the colors. If the carpet is limited colors like grays, off-whites, browns, just dark, muddy dark, sheep colors, right? If we're talking about wool carpets and the colors are boring, it is a known thing to paint versus dye. So that is something that happens in these early inventories. Dave, great to see you. You have your coffee and your glasses all set. And Michelle, you said about what we were talking about earlier. Being yourself always makes us targets. We love her and want to see her masked. Me too. I do too. I'm going to start looking at like Montessori schools and other types of schools. I didn't want to do that because I do believe in public school, but it's not necessarily working out for us. And I do want to see that child and everyone's child being exactly who they are, being the best version of exactly who they mean to be. Because man, I've seen some of my friends over the years who have specific things going on, are gay, have all of the things that we talk about today going on. And when you have to hide that or anything about the way you are, the way you like to be, the way you like to dress, the things that you like, when you have to hide that for a long time, man, that takes a toll, doesn't it? I'm sure you all know people who fall into this category. It chokes me up because it takes a toll and it takes a piece out of who you are. And it's not fair because it's other people who chip away. It's not you yourself who lost the nerve. It's like you get worn down. You get assaulted at a trampoline park and you decide you don't want to do that anymore. And it's like maybe her destiny is to make masks and be involved in the theater like I was when I was younger as a costumer. Oh, I'll tell you, life. All right, so let me hold on that. Hold on one second. Okay. Wait a minute. One more thing. As late as the close of the 18th century, the first American edition of the encyclopedia, remember, which was published in Philadelphia in 1798. Remember that when Americans won the war, the Revolution, in 1776, immediately after that, one of the first things that happened was we made a cultural shift in this country. And we wanted to sort of obliterate, no offense to our English friends, it's been a long time, but we wanted to obliterate everything that was English, like streets called Royal this or Royal that, or Queen Street or King Street, or it's named after members of the royal family. We also wanted to get rid of British spellings and British words and terms. And that meant rewriting the encyclopedia, which was done in 2 years, right, in Philadelphia. In 2 years, the encyclopedia was rewritten by a group of people. And it only had American spellings and words that were considered American words, leaving out like British slang, right, evolving British slang. So I think that in itself is interesting. So a definition from that Philadelphia Encyclopedia of 1798 defined a carpet this way. A carpet is a sort of covering of stuff, and stuff is material, it means cloth, or other materials wrought with the needle or on a loom, which is part of the furniture of a house, and commonly spread over tables or laid upon the floor. So in 1798, it is not unknown that one might put a carpet on the floor. It's not common, right? There are very few incidences of it. Oh, Lana, I cried my first week of school. Oh no. It's so hard, isn't it? It's so hard because you're little and you present yourself and you think that you're great because your parents tell you you're great and your friends tell you you're great, and you present yourself with your heart on your sleeve, and then other people crap all over you. And it's like, it's such a hard place to be. When you're older, I keep saying to the kids, when you're older, and people crap on you, it's like all bets off, right? I come out of the gate when anybody says anything to me or to the kids. When we were on Cape Cod, some kids said when Joss walked by with her mask on, we were like walking along the main street. He was probably like a young teenager, and he was like, "What the F is that?" And I turned to him and I said, "That is a little girl who is 10 years old wearing a mask that she made. What is wrong with you?" And then I said some extra things too. But I react like every time it happens because when you're older, you have a thicker skin and you know who you are, and you hopefully you feel good about yourself, and you don't let other people chip away at you. You have your armor, right? Hopefully not too much armor, because then you don't let people through. But if you have just enough armor, like not like an onion skin, but not like a suit of armor, something in between, then you feel like you can fight and you're in a good place to fight. But when you're a kid, you don't want to talk back, because particularly nowadays, I said to Teddy, if people are teasing you, don't zing them at this school, because we don't know if the kids have guns with them, if the kids have weapons with them. We don't know. So don't do zingers, right? Because he's very smart and he's good at zingers. Don't do zingers, because we just don't know. Suck it up and wait and watch, right? Strange. Melissa said, my B had a terrible first week at school. Neither one of us has ever recovered. Oh my God, I still cannot forgive the teacher who made us both feel so terrible. Isn't it awful when adults are complicit? Like teachers and principals and parents of other children? That's even the worst. And this is how I get into situations where I feel like I might have to be locked up. Like I'm not kidding. I react so badly. So if there's ever a long break from coffee time, check with my husband first to see if I have been incarcerated, because these are really trying days. And and it's like the mama bear thing versus the rules and laws of the land don't always align well. And I feel I often have to overstep them, right? Yikes. All right. Well, I'm so sorry that so many of you have had similar experiences. We're gonna hope for the best. I don't know. There's no answers, are there? There's no answers. And if you talk to other parents, even of kids who are bullies, they probably don't even know, right? Or they have blinders on and they think their kid is great, and they think your kid is great. They think everything is great, right? It's only the kids who are actually bullied who feel differently. It's the ones who are like, oh, this school system is great. This neighborhood is great. Aren't the kids so nice? No, the kids are not nice. And I'm thinking of your kid. Man, I've said that too, to more than one person. All right, let's do it. So let's move on from this sad subject. My poor little sweet peas. I love these little monkeys. All right. So let's look at some examples of what we're talking about. Again, this is the cover of the book. Let's just talk about this for a second. This is such a gorgeous painting. Now, if you're wondering, why does it have this kind of, why is it bad? Well, it's because it's naive and it's folk art. Now we say folk art. These would have been, this is, what did I say? Deborah Goldsmith, 1832. These were untrained artists, right? They are drawing what they see. Perspective, vanishing points, composition in general is not something that was a generally understood part of art. So folk painters are naive painters, meaning untrained at this period. And do they still get work? Yeah, because there's no photography, right? 1832. I don't think we have any photography yet. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but if we did, it's not for everybody, is it? So if you are lucky enough to have somebody traveling through your town who is painting portraits, and you can afford to have them come over your house and paint you, your wife, your mom, and your two kids, you're going to do it, right? Because of posterity. Because we have always, I think, been collectors at heart. There was just less stuff to collect back in the day. You couldn't collect all your whatever little statues of hippos or hummels or prints or books by a certain author. There wasn't a lot of anything, right? But you still wanted to put your stamp on eternity. You wanted to be remembered. You wanted to have something that showed what you looked like on this day with your family as it was. So people got these folk portraits done in huge numbers, and they were affordable for the most part. The most successful painters, right, painted for more wealthy people, and they would be on a different circuit, different neighborhoods. But this looks like just a regular old family, right? A little bit on the wealthy side. They're dressed quite well. Mom is living at home with them. She's probably holding the Bible. She's seated in a rocking chair, so she's a little bit more comfortable than the rest of the family. The fact that the husband is even reaching out and touching the wife shows great, she's kind of leaning away, isn't she? Isn't that a little bit funny? It's probably just a painting problem. But they obviously are a unified family, and there seems to be love there, and there seems to be that the glimmer of a smile on everybody's face. And it's a very happy piece to look at. The carpet is what we're interested in, and the carpet, I think, helps this entire composition so much. It's incredible to me how well the furniture, that hutch is painted. in the wallpaper, right? Because it's like it's freehand. It's painted really, really, really well. Um, the rest of it less well. But I mean, again, people were good at different things. The folds, you can tell this artist is struggling a little bit with folds, but it's better than none, right? It's better than most portraits I've seen of this period. The fact that the people are posed, particularly the children, in different positions, I think is interesting. The little girl seems to be holding either a ball or an apple. She has red shoes. Red is a big color here. It's a sign of wealth. There is a little needlework of some sort footstool in front of them. So there are comforts here, and they are represented. It does look like they're in folding chairs, but you know they're not, right? It looks like he has something under his foot, too, and I'm not sure at all what that is. You see that brown thing under his foot? Strange. I wonder what that is. I wonder if that's like an animal peeking out. I hope he's not stepping on an animal by accident. Nobody noticed. But the carpet is what we're interested in. And it is a striped carpet. And this is a very common type of carpet in this period before 1860. This is a loomed rug. And you would get you would have lots of choices of places that made straight loomed rugs, not patterned rugs, right? We're not talking about complex looming and card looming and things like that. This is just stripes, but there are a lot of striped rugs during this period. I think this is a particularly colorful one, but it's a dog around his foot. Yep, I see him now. Oh my God, he's so tiny. He looks like that character from Ice Age. Do you know what I'm talking about? That squirrel or something that never gets the nut. It totally looks like that to me. Oh, maybe a dachshund. Yep, could be a little dachshund. Yep, I see now. Cute, tiny little thing, isn't it? Dog around, I mean, that's a sign of loyalty, isn't it? The dog around the foot. Yeah, little footstool. So, you know, if it seems like this is a colorful rug, or that this is in general a colorful room with the paper and everything, that wallpaper would have been a huge sign of wealth. It wasn't. It wasn't unusual for people to have these super colorful rugs and walls. And I don't know, because I'm not an expert at all on early American lighting or furniture or anything, right? Just basic survey in art school. But I would say that if you think about the way that an older house worked from this period, like a 1700s house, we're talking about between 1 and maybe 5 or 6 chimneys, right, for different rooms, depending on wealth. And where you have a chimney, you have dirt and soot on the walls, right? So those houses, no matter how fastidious you are looking at dirt and kind of grime dinginess, right? Because of the heating source is also the cooking source in most cases. You're looking at a lot of smoke inside the house, and for that reason, the walls get dirty fast. So we don't see white walls during this period. We don't see white walls really until the middle of the 20th century, when it is popular, that mid-century modern, that big movement toward white. Nobody wanted white before then, because you know that you're signing up for a lot more scrubbing of walls, right? Things are just dirty. People use their fireplaces more. There's smoke, dirt. I'm sure you've all seen the situation where you're in an old house, you just moved somewhere, and somebody's taken down a picture, and it's just like the wall is a different color behind the picture, because all of the grime hit the wall around the picture. And that's why pictures need to be restored and cleaned up with a Q-tip and a little bit of water, and squeeze lemon juice in there just to clean up the surface, because the grime is also hitting your textiles, your paintings, everything that's in the house. So seeing what I think looks sometimes to us now as absolutely outrageous colors, even IKEA wouldn't try this one, I don't think. Maybe they would. This is very realistic for that time. More color was more cheerful, and why not? Now, this is a more austere example. Let me show you. Hang on. I'm going to just attribute this one. Hold on, because I remember I found this one online. This is The Bermuda Group, that's the name of the piece, by John Smibert, Smibert. This is now at Yale University, so I could go up the road and see this. And this was painted in 1729. This is a great example of a carpet, sometimes C-A-R-P-I-T or double T with an I, right? Not always the spelling with the E at this moment. This is a carpet, right? So somebody could afford a carpet, but they weren't using the carpet on the floor. They were using it on the table. And I honestly, I don't know anything about carpets on tables other than during the many years that I lived in England and then in the Netherlands. It is very common, particularly in the Netherlands, to go into an old pub and to still see thick carpets on the table, like on every table where you sit. And if you're thinking, doesn't it get dirty because it's like super thick and high pile, and doesn't it look grungy, and you're leaning on it with your arms and clothing? Yes, exactly. And if you're thinking, isn't it easy for pints of beer to fall over if they're perched on a really high pile carpet? Also, yes, they totally do fall over. So it begs the question, why were they ever on the table? And why are they still on the table in some places? I don't know the answer to those questions. I can vouch for it is a common thing to this day to see carpets on tables in exactly this way. Here's another example of a carpet on a table. This is the Isaac Royal family. And this was painted by Medford Robert Feek in 1741. This is in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So this was painted around Cambridge. So another American scene. These are American scenes. And they are using obviously imported carpets in both of these images. And they are using them again on the table. Now, is it possible that this was on a bed or on the floor and they moved it to the table for this portrait to show that they had an expensive carpet? Yeah, that's absolutely possible. I don't know if that's the case. We would have had to be in the room and hear the conversation with the painter when they were deciding what props to put into the picture. Could it also be that this wasn't their rug at all and it was a carpet that the painter traveled with so that everybody could use it? Yes, that's also possible. So without doing a ton of research into this particular family and this particular their inventories and all of that, which one could do, right? You could go down that kind of rabbit hole. Um, Catherine. Yeah, you could go down that kind of rabbit hole, and you might be able to even find out. Catherine wrote, I like how the cleavage was normal. It was normal. And it's like that, this style of garment, right? This is really true to the period. This is still quite fashionable. America's, like, in general, 30 to 50 years behind Europe at this point. But this is still quite fashionable everywhere. Very willowy waist, this wrap front frock. The women are not wearing bras right now. The garment that you see, that lacy white garment that is covering their boobs, which are not covered or supported by anything, is called a fichu. And this is something that could be made of cloth or of lace. And the idea was it was removable. So you could attach it to the inside of the neckline, but you could remove it and wash it. And you would keep that part clean because you wouldn't necessarily wash the garment at all or often. So it really would depend on your status, your situation, how much you had, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, the whole point was to create underclothes, right? Because they're also not wearing underpants yet. Create an underclothes situation where you could wash your underclothes, but a dress was considered like a coat. Like how maybe you dry clean your coats, but I tend to wear them for a couple of years without cleaning them at all and then donate them. I mean, I know it probably more grown-up people than me do like dry clean their coats and whatever, but all outer garments, including dresses, were considered an outer garment and not something you would clean. So they had all kinds of things to make you look fresher and cleaner and to keep as much white and luxury material, like lace if you could, up near your face so that people could see that you could afford it and that it was clean. So if your body's clean, your fichu would be clean too. Haven't said that lately. It is funny though, and this is like just in terms of costume. I love this period of costume because I've always, I say this to Joss now, even though it's a little too early. I always say, just embedding this, in my opinion, if you're going to wear like a low cut top, which is great if you have a good body and you want to, that's great. But my advice to my children and all children is if you're going to wear a low top, don't wear a short bottom, right? Because then everything is out on display. If you're going to wear a short bottom, maybe cover up a little more on top. I try to balance things out in my own life, even when I had a great body. This costume showed a lot of the front, but it didn't show any of the legs. You wouldn't even be able to see an ankle. So it is like that very sort of principle of I'll show a little bit, but I'm not going to show my entire body because then you've already seen the cow and essentially tried the milk and you're not going to buy anything here. So yeah, costume is interesting during this period because it moves really fast too. So let me move over to my phone because I found attributions for all of these pictures I took for us. Let me attribute this one before we look at it. Hang on while I find it. I took a bunch. Um, all right, Mama, is that it? Yep, that's it. Okay. Nope, that's not it. Hold on. There it is. Okay. So this is a British school. So this is a British painter. This is 19th century, and this piece is called Conversation Piece. So no further information other than that. We are looking at a very similar aesthetic. We are looking at the same kinds of carpets because milled carpets are coming from England. So we are, well, until we hit the revolutionary years and there's like a total boycott, right, on goods, imported goods, just not happening at all. But before and after, we are importing goods, and carpets are one of the main things. So this is the style of carpet that we would be seeing both in the U.S. in the 18th century and in England, but before the 1770s when the trouble really ramps up, right? So another family portrait, a British family, a larger family. I think it's just generally more typical at this period in England, and going right through Victoria's reign and all of her children for their families to be a little bit larger. In the U.S., we are seeing families that are less large in general in terms of population, and I think part of that is the medicine's not there. We're losing more children in those early settlement years. Child mortality is higher, and so is adult mortality because there's, like the stupid song goes on TikTok, like a million different ways to die, right, at this point, by accident and by illness that we could easily cure now. This is another interesting carpet that would have been a loomed carpet from this period. Let me find this to attribute this to. Okay, there it is. Hang on. This is women in 18th century colonial America, and this was painted in 1791. So, interesting carpet. Again, loud. Look at the dark green walls and look at how colorful this carpet is. Super, super expensive carpet. This would have been a milled carpet. This would have been on a loom, done on a loom, and it would have been done in pieces. So it would have had to been measured and cut, and you would have had to secure down. This is not a one-piece carpet, right? It would have been either sewn together or secured down in pieces. But some of these rooms in these grand early American houses are so large, there isn't a loom that can do them. So we are seeing pieced carpets at this point. And that's one of the reasons that the striped carpets were so popular, was that it was a little bit easier to put together a striped carpet because no matter what stripe it ended on, it didn't really matter if you picked it up on the same stripe, right? Stripes are stripes. Like your eye really can't say, oh, that's not an exact match, or that one, they cut that one a little bit to the side. If the stripes are going in the right direction, the carpet looks right. Something like this is a checkerboard structure to it, so it's a little bit different. So a little bit more expensive, a little bit more detailed, and of course this isn't just a straight woven carpet. This has a design embedded in the weaving. So more expensive, more intricate, just more work. And we are seeing women in early America wearing bonnets and wigs. So this we more commonly associate with like the Restoration period in England. But it does come to the U.S., and it doesn't come to the U.S. Often. You don't get a ton of very, very wealthy people in 18th century America, not America yet. You just don't, right? You don't get a lot of this. You get a lot of people who are coming here for religious reasons, for opportunities, but you are not necessarily getting a lot of very wealthy people arriving with beautiful clothing, carpets, and wigs, right? It's less common for sure. You do get people who make money over here and then send to England for certain things. There's all variety of person. This is an interesting one. Let me attribute this one first. Hold on. So this is called the Sargent family. If you're wondering, is this like the predecessors to John Singer Sargent? I don't know. But the piece is called, it's an anonymous painter, but it's called the Sargent family. And this is another beautiful piece. It shows a slightly more low-key house. It shows a family that looks to me not as sort of wealthy and ostentatious as the last families that we've seen. It is funny how in all of these paintings we're seeing a view out the window that looks like a painting, right? Because these painters have no experience painting and out the window, but they do know what paintings of landscapes look like. So we tend to see what look like painted landscapes hanging on the wall with valance, right? In all of these group portraits, the group interiors. We are getting a good glimpse of what different styles of chairs are looking like, because in New England, in Newport, I say Newport because I grew up mostly in Rhode Island, and I know that's one of the big furniture making hubs. I know there's others. I'm trying to think of what they would be at this period. But we can identify by the style of chairs. If you were a furniture person like Nina Fletcher Little, you would look at the chairs and go, oh, well, I know whose chair that is just by looking at the pattern, right? And that's very easily done with just some reference books now or the internet. It is nice to see that the woman is is seated in a very comfortable chair because she's got two kids over her lap. It's a nice informal portrait. The dog is playing in action, interacting with the kids. The kids are not seated and facing forward. They have more natural poses. They seem to be a bit more free. They're being treated like children, not like young adults who are made to sit. It's just a beautiful informal portrait. We are seeing two bird cages on the side of the window, so great entertainment for the kids. Being able to have, I know it sounds awful, but caged pets, right, to look at and to enjoy and to interact with. Beautiful wallpaper here too. We've got molding happening. We've got sort of a simple wainscoting thing happening. So this isn't a lower class family, right? This is still a wealthy family, but there are tiers and levels of wealth. So this isn't like the toppermost poppermost, but this is still a well-heeled family for sure. They've got on beautiful clothes. We are seeing a carpet in this room that looks like it's tiled, right? It looks like tiles, but it's actually a carpet. And then we are seeing a carpet behind the man in the next room. So there's a reason why the painter has the door open and they're showing you another carpet, right? It's more ostentation. It adds a little more color, but it's not for composition. It's so that you know that there's more stuff, right? They have some more stuff. And you want to show as much stuff as you can, not just to show off, but to record that moment. You never know what's coming for you tomorrow. But at this moment, they are in a house that seems to have a carpet in every room. So that's something to be proud of. Now, what's interesting about this carpet is it looks like it's a raffia or wickery rattan kind of a carpet. It's probably not, but I'm not sure either. Now, this was, what did I say for a year on this? Unknown. The Sargent family, anonymous. Let me see. Hold on one second. Give me just a minute. I wanna just see this one thought through. Sargent family painting. Let's go here. I want to see if I can get a year for it, a rough year. They're showing me John Singer Sargent, of course. Dang it. Oh, there it is. Okay, let me see. That's at the National Gallery. Let me see if we can get a year for this. I should know by the man's hat, but I'm more knowledgeable about European clothing because I did my degree in Europe. Okay, 1800. Okay, so this is not on view, right? It's at, what did I say, the National Gallery of Art. So this is in Washington, but this is not on view. This was painted in 1800, unknown. The dimensions are 38 1/4 by 50 and 5/16. Man, that's precise. So yeah, so it was given in 1953 as a donation. So interesting. Because now we have a year, so that makes a lot of sense. So that says to me this probably is a carpet. And the reason I'm having this conversation out loud with you and talking crazy is because there is such a thing as a rattan or a raffia carpet, but it doesn't come until a little bit later. I'm going to show you an example of that before we close this episode. Closing the book, because we're going to stop here. Let me fox the edge, and we'll come back to this, because I do like, I know not everybody likes these historical conversations, but I really like them. And if you're working on your project and you're hooking on your lap right now and you're just glancing up for the photographs, I feel like it is such rich texture, like just taking in these images, because it says so much about the past and where we're coming from. We are still talking about rugs, and I think this is a woven one because the sort of rattan or wicker carpet seems to come in much later in the 19th century. And the reason I know that is because I like to visit Gillette Castle, which is in, I think, East Haddam. I think it's East Haddam, Connecticut. It's been closed for a while for renovation. I wonder if it's reopened. I'm thinking it's probably not. I know they were doing some massive repairs. It has stones, right? It's like field stones all over the exterior. It almost looks like, you know, those little vases and things that have sand on them, like, and it's so highly textured. It looks like that. It's so beautiful. It's not a huge castle, but it is called Gillette Castle, and it belonged to William Gillette, who was the famous actor who played Sherlock Holmes and famously wore a deerstalker cap on stage when he played him and smoked the cape and did all the mannerisms that Arthur Conan Doyle took into account because of what Gillette was doing on stage and actually wrote those things into the Sherlock Holmes series, which were being serialized in London. So interesting to know that those things were not part of the original character, but the man who lived in this house, Gillette, created those little flourishes that really made Sherlock Holmes, the deerstalker cap, the cape, right, the kind of cloak. So this is the house. And when I tour this, I've noticed this every time I go in. This is the main room inside. This is a great tour because Gillette was a bit of a jokester, very eccentric, very eccentric. And he had a lot of trick mirrors, and he had a trick drinks cabinet where he would disappear upstairs and tell people to help themselves to the drink, and it was literally impossible to open the cabinet because it was like a puzzle box. And he would watch them from one of these pillars on that upper balcony where they couldn't see him, but through a series of mirrors he could see them struggling with the drinks cabinet, and he would just be having a joke every time. If you look at the walls, right, not the stonework, but look at the walls, you see how there are those square kind of like raffia trivet looking things. They look like trivets. That's the wall covering. Now, the carpet that's down in here is not the original carpet, right? This is here for tourists. Gillette ordered from a catalog, and I don't know if it was the Sears catalog or what, but Gillette ordered thousands and thousands and thousands of these little mats because he didn't know how many to get. He was wealthy and he didn't bother about the square footage. He wanted to use them on the floor. Now, I don't know if he ever did use them on the floor. I don't think he did. I think he bought so many that he had plenty. I mean, they're in every room of the house. He used them everywhere, and he had them installed in such a way that they made patterns in different places, but these are like rattan. He also had a ton of rattan wicker furniture, but this is at the very end of the 19th, early 20th century. And it was always curious to me to think about the fact that Gillette was sitting down. Let me just make sure that was the last. Yep. Sitting down in this room probably because there's all kinds of you see that little sofa on the right. He had tons of built-in sofas. He was probably sitting on a sofa looking at a catalog like you or I did 20 years ago when you still got catalogs. And he picked out thousands of these things. And I don't know why. I don't think they told us in the tour, and I don't know if they know why he didn't use them on the floor, but instead he used them on the wall. But they were intended, and they were marketed to be used for the floor. And they are individual rattan tiles. So you would have been able to decide whether you wanted all one color, or you wanted to do a checkerboard, or you wanted to do a design, right? Think about like quilts, think about postage stamp quilts where you've got those tiny squares and they make all kinds of patterns. You could do anything with these squares, right? So people were ordering these, and they seemed very inexpensive because they were sold per square or per pack. So he bought like more than he could use. I mean, he's got them like up in the attic level too. And again, I don't know what the original carpet is in the house, but I thought that this is curious, and it gives us a window into the idea of using something for the floor that is not a textile, right? That is like rattan, wicker. What's the other one? Rattan, wicker. I forgot it. I said it earlier. Now it's gone. But yeah, any of those wovens that would not be like done on a loom. I think that's interesting too. And that really is what that original rug to me, let me bring us back there, looked like. Right? It totally looks like that. But I think it's too early, right? 1800. If this was like 1880, which the costumes say that there's no way it ever could be, but if it was much later, I'd say, oh, I wonder if it's one of those tile things, but it can't be. It's too early. So interesting. And the only reason, and again, I'm not an expert on the production of these things. I've never seen them advertised. I don't have catalogs from that era, although I'd love to get them. I'd love to see those tiles advertised. But I know at Gillette Castle, when they open again, I know that they know how much he paid for them and how much he paid for, like, because his all of his paperwork is still there, and they were able to see what he spent for everything. He does have a he's long gone. He did have a beautiful hooked rug of a Scotty dog in one of the bedrooms, and I've taken pictures of it and shown it on Coffee Time before. I can't wait for them to reopen. I'm hoping they reopen for Christmas because they decorate beautifully for Christmas. It's not a big place, right? He was a bachelor, but it is beautiful, and it does have textile rug and that one hooked rug interest for me and for you too. So I'm really hoping that I can get back there soon and that they'll be open again soon. Michelle says, these book talks are so educational and interesting. Yeah, thank you for listening. I love doing them. And we do a lot of more sort of contemporary stuff often. But I was at a bit of a loose end this morning after I dropped the kids off, and I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I know I wanted to come on. So it was good that I thought of this rug and that it was there waiting for us, of this book. So we'll continue looking at this and some of these examples of historic rugs before 1860, because we will see more examples of rugs that are more familiar to us. For this moment, I'm going to stick with Monday and Friday shows. And I know it's not officially summer anymore because my kids are at school. But I really need to work on that haunted rug book. And I'm doing great with it, and you all are doing great with it. Thank you so much. But I really want to get that done. I hope that you have ordered that. I hope you have ordered the Magpie Times that is about to come out. Judy's just doing the final editing on that now. That'll be out shortly too. And I hope that if you're anywhere near me, and this will be in Massachusetts in the Berkshires, that you will come to the party and we can actually have a party together in person. That is super, super important to me. So I hope that you will be able to be there. It means a ton to me, because this haunted rug book means a ton to me. So all of those things are coming up. I am putting together a Halloween class. I'm working on that too. Until I got the kids out the door, I couldn't really breathe or think, right, until this morning. But I do want to remind you that I will be back on Zoom tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our first book club meeting, the new book club meeting, because it's been years since we had one, talking about the book The Sewing Machine by Natalie Ferg. And I don't know how long we'll be on. I'm assuming maybe an hour, hour and a half, something like that. I think I'll write some notes right now while I'm thinking about it. But I will be with you at 8 p.m. for that. And otherwise, I'll be with you on Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know if we're going to do a gallery night yet. Because I don't know if I will get enough examples to do a gallery night. But why don't you start sending me gallery stuff, your gallery pieces, to ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com, so that I can start assimilating them into a program. Shannon is on vacation visiting her sister in Australia. So I'm going to be working on that. If I have enough, I'll run gallery night this week. If not, I'll run it next week, and I'll run a different show on Friday. But I will see you tonight for our book club at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for gallery night. And big, big love to you too. Oh, Marilyn, I came on at 11. I'm still at 11 to 12. But it's recorded, and it's going to be there as soon as I log off. It'll be there for you. I can read the book in Dutch. I have it from this afternoon from the bibliothèque. Oh, how cool is that? Oh, the sewing machine book. Fantastic. Is the book club recorded? Yeah, might as well record it. Why not, right? Yeah, why don't we do that? I'll record it. Let's record it. Why not, right? Because we're talking about a book that exists, that that we're not reading the book, right? It's already on Audible. I don't think there's any problem with us recording our conversation about. Let's record it, and then it'll be there for you. So if you listen to it from the bibliothèque, then you can join in and hear what everybody said about the book later. Some different insights and things. That's a great idea. Remember, I'm sorry, Marilyn. We're just an hour earlier still, and I'm still on the fence about it. But I thought for a little while we'll leave it at 11. Yeah, and if you have ideas for the next book, let me know. I'm going to look at that too right now, make some decisions, and hopefully I'll see you at 8 p.m. tonight. Otherwise, Friday at 7 p.m., always Eastern Standard